ready in the bathroom. It's the last full day of my vacation. I went back home to say goodbye to my grandfather, so I went to Japan and stopped by Mom's place in Hawaii on the way back. She wanted to take me out to dinner. I take a peek at her applying her makeup, and I sneak in, resting my head on her shoulder. Hazel eyes looked in her dark brown eyes. My pale, freckly skin and red hair is a contrast to her tan skin and sun-bleached brown hair from living in Hawaii. When I look and analyze our faces, I could see where I get her Japanese genes. Similar noses, same shaped eyes. She chuckles softly. You know, your grandmother would have loved to braid your hair. I had got it cut earlier in the day from mid-back to shoulder length. She reaches back with her hand to stroke my hair, and I lean in slightly to her touch. Both of us usually aren't affectionate at all, deeming it an American quality, like how all the people on Full House keep hugging each other. After years of living in San Diego, my hair isn't used to the humidity of Hawaii it once was used to, so I look like Hermione without product to tame my mane. When I lived there as a kid, Mom would have to braid or tie my hair daily to help with taming my hair. Mom smells like comfort and clean laundry, and her other soft hand holds the back of my hand, full of scars from a childhood incident when I had first-degree sunburns over the majority of my body. From the back of my hand to my shoulder was one blister, and scar tissue remains to this day, 2 decades later. She traces each raised mark as if it were a star chart. Then the moment of affection passes as she doubles her effort in makeup. The moment of embrace ends, and I recognize when she's put her guard up, so I walked back into the living room and wait for her. It felt nice to be touched for once. Summer 2010. In San Diego, Dad and I moved into this huge house. And considering that we were living in a one-bedroom apartment before that, we got very little. I moved because I got free schooling due to Dad being a retired disabled war vet, but does it mean I have to enjoy where I live? I set up a futon and my laptop in the middle floor to binge on World of Warcraft. When I think he's asleep, I dig around and clean things bit by bit. I rummage in the closet by the kitchen that seems to hold everything and pull out some maroon thread. Dad catches me off guard, then walks over, beckoning me to sit down. He starts. I want you to understand something before you touch this thread. He pauses as I sit. This was your mother's thread, something she saved up to purchase. I look at him, my attention held. The thread you currently hold in your hands is from around World War II. He places the thread in my hand. Think before you use it, please. Summer 1995. I'm 6, and going over to Grandpa's house is a dream come true. He has all the best candies in the world in the cupboard, all for me. And this one time, I find a black and white picture of Mama and a little boy. So I ask, Mama, who's this? That's my Mama, she says. She's not here anymore. Why? Remember when we go to the family altar and say Namu? My Mama got very sick and passed on. So when we pray to the altar, she hears us. Mama pat my hand and then murmured, "You'll understand when you're older." And of course, that pisses 6-year-old me off. March 11th, 2011. I'm drifting between sleep and being awake, drowning in my depression. Dad knocks on my bedroom door, increasing in frequency until I opened it. His face is pale as he tells me to go downstairs. I sat down on the sofa, and he sat next to me. He turned on the TV, and my world came crashing down on me. Seeing the devastation of my motherland, with the waves crashing down on her. Fukushima. I was cemented on the sofa, barely moving. Cox granted a free month of the Japanese networks for all of their customers, so I was watching news from the Japanese equivalent of the BBC. I wear something other than pajamas for the first time, and I wash the linens, then set up camp in the living room. I hear the familiar mother tongue roll across in calm waves. Then the undertow of bad news comes and sweeps me again. The body count rises. 1,603 found, 534 missing, 753 lost souls. The Japanese newscaster murmurs his prayers after each announcement. Gomeifuku o inorimasu. We pray for those who we have lost. Namu Amida Butsu. Have mercy. Dad sits on the other couch, then tells me something I never knew. Your grandmother's family was from Fukushima. He trails off, monitoring me. Tears stream down my face. I'm devastated by the thought that I can no longer visit my grandmother's ancestral home. I've seen one picture of it, a vintage black and white photo of a small house. Dad tells me not to ask Mom about it, and I take heed. I look at the maroon thread, and I take it, holding it in my fist as I will to the deities I once believed in. That if any relatives of my grandmother still existed, that they would make it okay. I start folding 1,000 paper cranes on minuscule sheets of origami paper, and I fold while holding my wishes in my soul. Each crease was a stanza of prayer, and I used the maroon thread, my grandmother's thread, to hold each crane. One of the Buddhist temples was offering to send the cranes to Japan, so I hold until the oils in my fingertips are rubbed raw, swelling in pain. Spring 2016. A few years later, I'm reminded of the Tohoku earthquake for a class assignment. I learned that my Japanese grandfather was a child during World War II. He was born and raised in Yokosuka, a city that was occupied by American forces for the US Navy. Coincidentally, where my mother and father met, too. Yokosuka was once host to the Midway, and my grandfather worked on her as a steelsmith, repairing her when she was in port. He and his brothers all worked there, leaving my grandfather to raise the children in the tenement housing they all lived in. When the Midway made her way across the Pacific to San Diego to her final resting place, Dad worked on her, volunteering his time for her maintenance. As a boatswain's mate, he braided onto all the handrails and did rope work on the pillars. As I toured it for the first time, I imagined my grandfather 50 years prior, and my dad also aboard through the same entrance, and my heart is warm. Dad scratches his head when I ask him about some stuff. I was still pretty young when I left Japan for the last time, so my memories of living there were more of the tangible sort, like running into my cousins at the mall, eating ramen with them, going out with my late uncle after his dialysis treatments. When it comes to the things that the adult me wants to know, like how my mother was in her youth, how my grandparents met, my grandmother's side of the story, nobody confesses to the family history, so I'm a bit clueless, and research starts hitting more and more dead ends. I learned about my mom's side through Dad, and how Mom would strive for better for my brother and I, whether it be an extra sweet or buying us a small cake to celebrate the holidays or birthdays. Even though Mom and Dad divorced a long time ago, it's clear that they still care about each other. The Japanese don't have a birth certificate as most of the world does, but rather they do a family tree to prove lineage, called a koseki. I lack the ability to read complex kanji characters, but I look over my own koseki, seeing my grandparents listed. All the names are poetic. Most rural Japanese have surnames based off of nature. My surname is Takada. It means rice paddy in higher elevation. Even though his stories are now out of reach, all I need to know is that my grandmother and grandfather met and lived through extraordinary circumstances. And because of them, I am here today. Summer 2016. I remember the trip back home, specifically the morning before my flight back to San Diego. Mom's making me last-minute breakfast and a bento, much like the ones from my childhood. She shows off her latest creation, a Pikachu bento, with an egg covering the rice, seaweed conveniently cut, and ketchup to make the red cheeks. I smile at her effort as she sits down with food for me and tea for her. Ne, okasa. I slip back into Japanese, the last time I'll be using it for a while. Yeah, what's up? Mom responds. Wanna braid my hair?
That was Alix Sharp.